Hey there, everybody. I am joined by Andy Talaga,
Hello.
and we are filming this right by Christmas. We thought, what a fun thing to do would be to make a list of all of our unpopular opinions, right? Who doesn't love some unpopular opinions?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
these are our unpopular collecting opinions. It's not necessarily just about Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any specific game, but kind of cross-cutting here. But these are sort of our unpopular takes of 2022. So, by the way, if you guys want to, if you like the content, please subscribe. I always forget to say that, but I'm just going to plug it. So, Andy, do you want to start off with your first unpopular hot take?
Sure. So, this is not aimed at anybody. It's my opinion or Matt's opinion. If you have a different opinion, please write in the comments below.
We want some
We could
trolls. We
we
need
could
some
get some good
trolls.
trolling back and forth, troll arguments on YouTube. That's, I think, what Matt's channel's been really missing is troll arguments. But so hopefully this is all in good fun as well. Except my opinion's correct, of course.
Of course, of course, of course.
So my first one is, I'm going to start it out by saying, the pandemic was tough for a lot of people. People lost their jobs financially. It was tough on people, health problems, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want any of that to come back. But my unpopular opinion is I still wish it was kind of the height of the pandemic right now. It was like, June 2020, because I'd have a lot more time to spend on my collectibles that I want to do stuff with. I just don't have any time anymore to do it. And so, yeah, I'm not thrilled about 2022 and working and family and going out and doing, like, I want to, lock myself in a room and look at binders of 2 by 3 inch pieces of cardboard with pictures of Luke Skywalker on them.
Yeah, dude, that's the living the dream there. I think mine is kind of a corollary of that. So I think for a lot of these out of print dead card games, the best days are behind us. And so what I mean is every instance where there would have been sort of a massive clean out of stores or storage units, basements, garages, they've kind of happened, right? There's no more a guy who closed the store in 2007, opening up a storage unit, and during COVID, and all of a sudden he has 30 sealed boxes, right? Like I think a lot of that's been done, and COVID was sort of I think the last big accelerant of that. The magical American basement or garage has been kind of cleaned out at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think all those like special moments of I just found a case of this very rare product, that's kind of gone. Like I think everything's kind of been found. The words out right now, right? Like it's different than I think during COVID where it was truly like kind of the Wild West. People were finding all sorts of weird crap. Like every week I'd see like extremely rare items coming up. Like just opened a thing. I found this box of
Found 20 boxes of treachery and deceit. How
right,
much
right, exactly. Yeah.
Can I get at least $1 for these?
Right, yeah, absolutely. So I think that those days have kind of passed, and at this point, like there's almost a sort of like dryness in the market a little bit where people know this is valuable. They're choosing not to sell it, and there's no more being made. So it's just sitting in people's collections. So that's one of my unpopular opinions. It's just like generally that the best days as far as the new product entering are kind of behind us. What's your
I think anecdotally to that is also some of the people that got in that were like fun to talk to a bunch have also kind of left. And, I said anecdotally is, I'm in, say, the Versus System Collective, which is the Marvel DC trading card game group. There was this one guy who was in there. He actually lived near me in Philadelphia. I actually met him a couple of times over pandemic to like sell him cards, and we'd sit and chat about
in real life friends. It's so fun when that works out.
And we'd talk about a deck that he was building or that I was building, or like whatever drama was going on with like an auction that got show bidded or something, and like we would talk about it. And I didn't see him on the group for like now probably almost like a little bit over a year. And then he popped up and was like, "Hey, selling all my cards." I was like, "Oh, there goes my internet buddy that I met at the Dunkin' Donuts by my house to sell cards." Like like, hoping that police don't come up thinking that I'm trying to like sell illicit substances. And I'm like, no, man, I'm selling them a Batman here. Like, so
Yeah,
yeah, I guess anecdotally, the best times are behind us. The people that jumped in are somewhat also going out as well.
yeah.
So
I think that there's also a level of sophistication, and also that people have kind of got the stuff. And I think this might be spoiling one of our later ones, but it seems like at this point there's not a lot of new people coming in with like, here's my extremely rare stuff that's been sitting in a garage. It's like no, it's like those people have been fleshed out. It's kind of a little more
yeah,
a little more boring, right? There's no more like, here's my extremely rare foil collection. It's like, no, you got some basic ones, man, just like everyone else.
right, yeah.
Um,
So
so
I guess
what's your next one? Yeah.
my second one, somewhat similar to the theme of pandemic collecting, is about price memory and retracing. And I guess my unpopular opinion is a lot of people that got in, either that were enfranchised players before pandemic and then saw the value of their collections like spike and were like, oh wow, I can sell this foil masterworks or this reflections ultra rare, whatever it is, this comic book, etc. It's like, wow, I can sell it for a ton of money. Or if you were like new and you bought in at that time, you have this like price memory of like, this Aragorn or this Emperor Palpatine or this, whatever
Yeah,
card
it's $1,000 or whatever,
could
right?
be like this amount of money, but there's not really any new blood coming in to the markets, to the collecting groups and stuff. So it's like, I guess it is. Are you going to sell it? Because you don't seem like you're going to be the person that sells it. You want to hold it because you're a collector. And like if you sell it and it sells for, instead of $1,000, it sells for 680, you're going to be really disappointed. Right.
Right.
So rather than risk that, you just don't sell it. But then it's all this kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. My card's worth $1,000. Haha. And you're like,
Like one sold on eBay 18 months ago for $1,000.
$1,000.
Right.
Right. And that's the only sale that you have. Is it really worth that much? Maybe, but the only way to know is for you to sell it. But you don't really want to sell it because, one, there's no new person, like you just said. Hey, here's my crazy foil collection that I've had in storage for the last 13 years. Or what's all this worth, right? There's nobody coming in that has the collection to replenish it if you did sell it to get a new price point. So, like, retracing and price memory are, I think, holding, or not retracing, price memory is holding back collectibles to a certain extent from having a natural market available for them, just because there's an unwillingness to actually feed the market.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of going off that one, as far as markets are concerned, and I know this is going to upset a few people, and but I just don't think graded cards, specifically graded, dead collectible cards, have a market. Like, I just don't. I think everybody has this experience that they read about with Pokemon, where all of a sudden, like, a graded Charizard's worth 10x more than a raw one, and that's just not the case for these dead games, because fundamentally people collected these, or they played with the game, but there's just not this vibrant marketplace for graded stuff, right? And I see a lot of this stuff. Maybe a year ago there was a little bit of speculation happening, and there's also this delay at PSA, or delay at a lot of the grading companies, and now you can get a card graded for $15, right? And unless you're truly getting a 10, which maybe people want, perfect mint 10s or 9s, but an 8 and below is basically worth the same amount as the card is raw, right? And I think that it's the same people buying and selling from each other. And I got nothing against grading. I own, a couple graded cards. I think they're cool to look at, but also you get to that point where it's like, it's just, they're there to look at, right? Like, there's no utility besides the display, and you're probably not going to want to display an 8 or a 7, right?
Sure.
Unless you're truly getting that best grade, there's no real market for it. And I don't see that changing. I would just say that sealed product is the only thing in all of this stuff. So literally, when I say sealed product, I mean sealed packs. It's the only thing that's actually an investment, in my opinion, at this point, right? That's the only thing that don't buy graded, buy sealed stuff. That's my 2
Yeah.
cents.
I feel like graded makes sense for certain things, like really high end collectibles. Um,
Yeah, like
you're going to get your Beta Lotus graded
yeah,
because it's also going to authenticate it as a real card, where you
yeah,
have like markets where forgeries, proxies, Chinese counterfeits, etc., are like a legitimate thing. Or if it's just like super old, like baseball cards, like sure, go get your 1952 Mickey Mantle graded because it's also going to protect it from elements.
right.
There was like what, a million copies of whatever card printed from Star Wars premiere set. Like, okay, sure, there's I get it, premiere has like a bunch of printing things, but how many copies of Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith from special edition were printed? A good ton of them, and there's just not that many people playing Star Wars CCG that like anybody who wants a Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith can go get one. You don't need to have it like protect it from the elements like you would like a vintage baseball card. And
Right.
there's nobody who's counterfeiting this really, because the market is just so small. A counterfeit shop in China is not going to spend their time trying to figure out how to make fake
Like
hunt down and destroy the Jedi card. Like, it's just
right.
not going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's not to say that that market isn't poised for growth or could, evolve, but I just think right now it's not there, and we're about to enter into a recession, which I'll say out loud. And I just don't think that this is going to be great for a lot of these sort of like static assets that I'm not too bullish about in the first place, right? Sealed product, I think that'll be fine. Certain ultra rares, but I don't see why you need to encase them in plastic now that really it's pretty easy to get something graded in 30 days for $15.
Yeah.
All right, what's your next one, Andy?
All right, my next one is just kind of like a two-part to this one. Is that again, going back to the idea that you mentioned originally of like the best of times are kind of behind us, is that the future has, as much as I want it to be really optimistic and positive about collecting, specifically like dead CCGs, I think that it's in for like the people like you and me who are into it. We're going to be into it for a long time and keep our collections, and like we'll have them for a long time. But there's not really a strong wave of the future coming for this. And what I mean by that is like, let's say you were 9 years old, or we'll use 8 because it's easier. You were 8 years old in 1998 to be in the first Pokemon boom, right? Well, by the time 2010 rolled around, and I'm using 2010 as like this benchmark year for a couple of reasons that would probably take much longer than we have to for this video, but you were like 18-year-olds are not in a nostalgia peak at that point, but they are when they're 28, which was 2020, right? And so like for card games, I'd say the 90s were like the wild west of like anything goes. There's a bunch of people who are now in their like mid to late 30s or early 40s that have a lot of nostalgia for the 90s stuff.
And also cash, most importantly, they've established themselves professionally, that they maybe have good job, and they're like, what do I do with this disposable income?
Right. And then the 2000s were the time when like CCGs really kind of came into their own and matured. But by like 2010, except for Magic, right? Like I'm sure there was Pokemon, but like I just said, you were 18 at that time in 2010, 20 years old in 2020. Like 20-year-olds really are not going around collecting, the latest set of Pokemon cards. I'm sure there's people out there that do it, of course. But like, there's really no continuation of CCGs. They all kind of died, right? And Magic really just took over the entire space, right? Of course, there's Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's Pokemon. There's always the big three. But like, there's just not really like it. Like, there's no, Star Wars game. It was Fantasy Flight games, living card games, and then a bunch of like anime-based games out of Japan that really went nowhere. I mean, they still exist, Weiss Schwartz and whatever else, but like,
Yeah.
come on, nobody's playing that stuff. And so by the time the people who would be going into that phase of collecting, like 10 years from now, there's nothing that they're going to be collecting within the CCG space. And they're too young to have any nostalgia for 90s stuff
Yep.
and or early 2000s, Lord of the Rings versus System, the Spoils, etc. So it's like there's kind of this like impending cliff of like this thing just kind of ends. It's like Elvis memorabilia or like precious moments, right? You know, my Star Wars collection is my aunt's precious moments collection, I guess. That's really sad. My heart just broke right there. Um,
Oh,
but the corollary to all of that is that like it's all about digital assets, and digital assets are kind of a future of collectibles. But maybe I'm just an old man now. I don't really have any like I was huge into Clash of Clans in like 2012, 2013, 2014. I have no nostalgia for Clash of Clans. I have good memories of people that I played with, but I never met them.
you don't want to like get the limited edition, like whatever
The
Lord's Hut or
skin
something.
of the,
Yeah.
a new skin for my wizards or whatever that one. It's like, okay, loot boxes and skins and all that kind of stuff that goes into digital gaming post like say PS4 era on type stuff is like I'm sure that there will be something to collect, but it's mostly digital. Like I'm not going to have nostalgia for the skin on my cape that I got from my character or
I
something.
100% agree there. So a couple points here. I think one, absolutely, like these digital collectibles, that they're really hard to figure out what the value is, right? Like Fortnite skins. I can't imagine people trading those in 10 years. And then you kind of have to move to NFTs with whatever digitalized stuff. But I think so many people are having bad experiences with these that I think it's broadly tainting collecting and sort of just doesn't leave a great taste in anyone's mouth when you see like apes selling for $2 million and then a year later they're worth $2,000. Like that sort of reputational damage is bad for all of collecting, right? Because it makes people seem crazy. And then the final thing is, I think in general, Americans, only speaking to the American audience, but like there's just a move towards minimalism as an aesthetic, right? People might, like I just had people over for a holiday party and they're like, I could kind of tell they're in here, the bathroom in here, they're like, looking at my shelves, like, you got a lot of stuff, man. I'm like, that's cool stuff, though, I swear. But like, there's this movement towards a more minimalistic, like, less stuff is better, right? And so I just think that in 10 years, people are going to frown on like the giant white card boxes more than they do right now. So, and I think that's just like kind of where momentum is going. I'm not saying it's dying, but I just think, yeah, like that's kind of a cultural thing that's happening. That these big games and everything, people want their houses to feel more minimalistic. Anyways, I'm going to move on to my last couple points here. So all these little economies that I think we've talked about, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings versus all these dead CCGs, all these economies are shrinking. This is my big hot take, is I think that they're circular. They've been circular for a while. It's the same people buying and selling from each other. But I think that they're shrinking despite becoming more sophisticated. So for example, looking at Star Wars, you have this brand new store that's out there with Beefred, right? Like I think he's doing a nice job running the store, but I still think that while it might look more sophisticated, there's more eBay postings than ever. I don't know if there's more buyers. It seems to me like people have kind of gotten their stuff. But like I have not bought any stuff, any collectibles in probably like 6 months. Because I don't need it, right? I don't know what's on my wish list. There's a bunch of stuff that's super far fetched. It's sort of like talking about how the best days are over, where the stuff that was super rare, well, I missed my window to get that. That was like 2020, 2021. And now that's all been gobbled up, and that's all that's left on my wish list. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, the market's filled with rare stuff, but not that interesting, right? Like you can get all the cards, like even Reflections 3 foils for Star Wars. All the ultra rares are for sale on eBay. They're just there at like a very high buy it now price. Whereas like there's nothing really that's interesting for sale. Like, there's no Imperial class Star Destroyer. There's no like Corellian Corvette. There's just kind of common stuff. Like, this is rare, but it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
And then, okay, my last one here. I did this at the very end just in case they're listening, but online formats for these games, I'm looking at GEMP specifically, needs to modernize. Players have changing expectations of what an online experience should be with a game. They sit there playing Hearthstone on their phone, they're sit there playing Gwent or whatever. That games need to keep up with it, and they also can keep up with it by having shorter formats, right? Like, really, mobile play is the future for everything. So if you're going to keep up, have a 40 card format, right, for Star Wars, or have something, an app version, like something that helps keep up with the expectations that people have for their online card experience.
Yeah.
Which I know that's costly, and it's not easy, but I just think that's sort of what people expect. And GEMP is a lovely platform, but every time I log in, I'm like, am I allowed to be here? Like, this the homepage is not very welcoming, right? It's just like a bunch of packs. And so,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say my last one is, I guess this one's also a little bit of a two-parter. One, print and play, full on print and play for every single card is the way to go for dead
yeah.
CCGs, right? Expecting people to be able to piece together decks for whatever game with like real cards, and that's not it, right? If the purpose of a lot of dead CCGs is, I mean, there's twofold. There's collecting and there's playing. Some people do both. If you're a collector, you don't care about playing as much. Like, if you're just solely a collector, you don't care about playing. So you're going to go get the real cards. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're a player, you want to play the game, and you want to play the game because you enjoy playing the game. You don't want to be like hamstrung because you couldn't get this copy of Aragorn, or this version of Batman in Versus System or something, right? Like, so print and play is like basically a must for all games. People need to get over proxying. Proxies are okay. I have one of the most massive Star Wars CCG collections on the planet. I'm completely okay with anybody sitting down and proxying a full 60 cards in front of me. You could use Sharpie on a card and play, right? Like, I don't care. People need to get over proxies. And then on top of that, limited play is far superior to constructed play. Building your own deck and like playing like a genuine constructed 60 card is not the best way to play or experience a game. It's 40 card Highlander, limited play, drafting, maybe sealed. Sealed's kind of weak. I don't like sealed, but draft is the best way to experience a lot of games. Unfortunately, most 90s games are not designed to be drafted. So, but you could do sealed. Limited is the superior way to play, and you should be allowed to proxy all the cards that you want, whatever you want, and print and play.
Absolutely. So in summary, the best days are behind us. We wish COVID was still here. These markets are dying. Graded is lame. Online formats need to be improved. What was it? I'm missing a couple of yours, Andy.
For me, it was price memory. Cards are priced at things that are unrealistic at this point for creating sustainable markets to continue them on. There is really not a lot of future for some of this stuff because of the way that nostalgia cycles work, and collectibles for digital assets are probably how the future is going to go, but that seems like a very weird market, and that you should be allowed to proxy anything, print and play everything, and limit it is better than construct it.
See, you did a much nicer summary. Like, I feel like me saying graded is lame, I'm gonna have like some DMs from that. So I hope they don't make it to minute 26 or 24 in the video. So well,
Okay.
this was a lot of fun to do, Andy. Thanks for joining me for this New Year's edition, or whatever we're calling this. And we'll catch everybody next time.
Sounds good. Bye.